And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Dragons!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
In the room of Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yep.
It's playoff. Get going, Brace.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Welcome to Chasing the Trophy Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Sanders, and we're missing our producer today, Clay Williams. He had some dental work done and is not going to be able to make it. And so he'll be coming back at you, though, this week with a start, sit, sleeper pod. I'm going to be out of pocket for a little bit at the end of this week. So Clay's going to catch back up with you with that start, sit, sleeper pod. But I'm coming at you with this waiver wire for week 2 coming up. So just going to cover some players that we recommend, top waiver wire additions that are owned in less than 60% of leagues. Typically we select these based on position. Sometimes there's 3, sometimes there's 5. There's quite a few at each position that I'm just going to talk about. Doesn't necessarily mean that I highly recommend all of them, but they're just people to consider just to kind of have a broad base depending on who's available in your league. But we'll get to this out there. If you pay attention to our Dirty Boot Sports Facebook page, then Clay released the graphic yesterday with all these names on them, and then I'm going to go into some further detail on why and who I like and why. And then there's a couple of extra wide receivers on there, just because there's quite a few this week that I think could be relevant. But first, we're going to go ahead and kick off with a word of prayer, and I just want to pray for Norke as she's, Lord, just as she's coming through and working with her immunizations and building up her immunity, and just be with her in a hedge of protection over her as she's going through this process, Lord. She's already doing great things for you with her testimony, Lord, and just thank you for all the blessings you've given them, and just please continue to put a hedge of protection around Norke and the Meredith family. And then also I want to pray for Crew Tidwell, as he's still, as far as I know, undergoing treatment, recovering from his battle, and just be with him as him and the Tidwell family continue to fight this battle, Lord, and just be with them, and if it be your will, just put your hand on him. And I know that from everything that I've heard, that family will, testify to you, Lord, in that healing. And then also, Lord, just be with Louisiana and all the people in South Louisiana and Texas as this Hurricane Francine's coming in. Just be with these people, and if it be your will, just make it where it's just a heavy rain, Lord, and just nobody has anything destroyed, and there's no lives lost, no one truly hurt, Lord. Just be with everyone in the path of this hurricane. And then also, Lord, just be with our men's retreat, Fair Park Baptist Church, my church, the men's retreat coming up this weekend, Lord. As you know, it's a powerful tool, but it's just a tool, Lord, because without you, it's nothing, and that's all we want, is it to glorify you and bring men to know you and to be closer to you. And just please allow us to do that and keep everyone safe, especially with the hurricane coming. We're pressing on. We're not going to let that slow us down, Lord, to do your work. And just thank you for all the blessings you've given us. Thank you for allowing us to talk about this wonderful game and enjoy it, and just continue to let us be a light and shine and spread your name. In your name we pray, Lord. Amen. All right, guys, jumping right on in. We're going to thank our sponsors, Big Reed BBQ, Mimi's Children's Boutique, and Crown Detailing. Big Reed BBQ started as a family recipe in 1986. Our mild flavor is right on time. Our spicy is just enough heat. Owner Ken Reed and Director of Marketing Andre Leonard say you can get their sauce at Doug Damona Farm and Feed, Time to Shine Detail, the Salty Brahma, the Equipment Store, and Amazon. We've already talked about this before. Everybody's got Amazon. Order some of this Big Reed BBQ. Football's kicking off. Throw it on you, some of your ribs. Throw it on some pulled pork. Whatever you like. Grab it. Maybe put it on a hamburger. Who knows? Your brisket, if that's what you want. But get some. Try it out. It's great. They've sponsored us from day one. Y'all try to help support them. We really appreciate Big Reed BBQ. And Thank y'all. Y'all support them. They support us. Upcoming pods, like I just alluded to just a second ago, starts at Sleeper Pod. Clay, you're going to get that going for y'all later on this week, and you should have a graphic pop up for that sometime around Friday. Obviously, we don't include the Thursday night games in that. So be looking for that around Friday. News and injuries. CMC, calf and Achilles, quote unquote, ended up getting ruled out. Man, did not see that coming. And honestly, really nobody in the fantasy industry seen that coming. Well, I can't tell you how many people on there even some of the big fantasy analysts like at ESPN, Field Yates, if you know who he is, he was talking, he got caught like with CMC on two of his teams that there was nothing he could do, had no idea that anything like this was going to happen. And it just alludes to, sometimes if some of these players are questionable and you're really heavily leaning on, maybe you should have a backup plan. Maybe you should have some other random person to be able to throw in there last minute. It's a tough situation. Hopefully that doesn't happen anymore. Hopefully you didn't get caught by that. I apologize. But anyway, brutal thing with him being ruled out, but hopefully he'll come back sooner rather than later. Just keep an eye on him for practice schedule and what they say. If he gets a full practice in, he's definitely coming back. But if he does not, then I would just keep an eye on that. Devin Achane had another really efficient game, but did not practice Monday due to an ankle injury. I'd keep an eye on it. Supposedly there was no injury for him or Raheem Mostert, who's also did not practice Monday, reported during the game. So this could be one of those things where they're just resting, getting their recovery, their recovery treatments in. And the way the NFL works, you cannot list rest as a reason to miss practice. You have to give an injury designation. So if that's the case, and these guys are just kind of recovering, these are just some kind of rando, bogus injuries that they're listing just so they can rest and catch up. So keep an eye on their participation later on in the week. If for some reason Achane or Mostert don't play, I don't have Jalen Wright listed as one of my running backs, but he is priority. If Achane and Mostert do not play, Jalen Wright is essentially Devin Achane 2.0. It's a rookie fresh out of college. Super explosive back that was inactive for week one. And that was only because they got Achane, Mostert, and Wilson that were active. So there's no need to have a fourth running back. And because Jalen Wright doesn't play special teams. But if Achane and Mostert for some reason end up missing more, pick up Jalen Wright. He'd probably be my running back two behind Jordan Mason, who I'll talk about in a little bit. Puka Nacua, man, tough injury. Ended up getting ruled out during Sunday Night Football. Hurt his knee again. I've been told it was a PCL sprain. He's going to be out. They put him on IR. Honestly, there's going to be some wide receiver targets. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, and I think it'll help boost the tight end spot for them. But yeah, Puka, bad situation, out at least 4 weeks. Could be a little bit longer. Throw him in that IR spot. When he comes back, he'll still be valuable. But man, Cooper Kupp is looking like a steal in drafts right now. Kenneth Walker, I guess flew under the radar to an extent, ended up with an abdomen injury. No update as of Tuesday whenever I wrote this pod, and now that we're recording it. But anyway, Kenneth Walker said he was good. The coach said it's a wait and see approach. So, once again, if he ends up missing time, Zach Charbonnet would be a high priority add. But, maybe this is just kind of like he's okay. They're just kind of letting him catch up. Who knows? Keep an eye on that for later on the week. T. Higgins, hamstring, ended up getting ruled out. So the word is that he injured it late in practice, not just a tweak, not something that he was managing before, injured it late in the week last week and was ruled out prior to the game. No new update. Keep an eye on him for this week. But there's a rumor with his injury, he could end up being out for this week also. So watch his practice. If he gets in a full, I think he goes. But if he does not, could be a chance that they kind of protect him to keep him from injuring it again. But also in his situation, he's trying to get a contract. So he's not trying to hurt himself or have a long-term injury this season so he can get healthy and get back. So don't be surprised that he might miss another week. All right, next, Jordan Love. Man, what a bummer. Looked like he injured his knee late in that game. Jordan Love for the Packers. Man, so they're not putting him on IR, but there's an estimated 3 to 6 week timetable. Man, what a range, right? I mean, that's like it could be like 3 weeks or it could be double that. Who knows? But 3 to 6 week timetable, definitely out 3 weeks though. Probably they're not saying what specific knee injury yet, like what he injured, what he if it was AC, I mean a PCL or MCL or LCL or a meniscus or anything like that. But whatever it is, 3 to 6 weeks. And it stinks because they're not putting him on the IR. So until he's ruled out each week, you can't put him on your IR, and it kind of locks you up. I probably wouldn't drop him, but right now Malik Willis is supposed to replace him, but they also brought in Ryan Tannehill there in Green Bay to give him a workout. I really think it's a strong shot that Tannehill gets signed and probably ends up starting over Malik Willis pretty quick. David Njoku, possible high ankle sprain. The coach declined to say that it was a high ankle sprain, which is kind of great. He probably just don't know. But anyway, he stated that he's week to week. I wouldn't hold out hope with his injury history. Probably a good chance Njoku doesn't play this week, especially if it is a high ankle sprain. Just keep an eye on his practice designation as it gets closer next week. Jake Ferguson with an MCL sprain has not been ruled out to play this weekend. Typically with MCL sprains, most of them, especially these athletes, they take about 2 weeks of rest before they can get back going. But I will think he will at least be limited if he does play, probably to limited in the passing work, especially because he's a very good blocker, which is what's got him to this role so quickly in his career. But I would imagine even if he does play, it's going to hinder his gait or his running ability to an extent. So I wouldn't hold out hope if Jake Ferguson plays. I'd still probably fire up somebody else, give him this week, and then maybe next week he'll be good to go for sure. I talked about Raheem Mostert. He's got some kind of chest injury, didn't practice Monday. I talked about that earlier. Rome Odunze, knee MCL sprain, considered week to week. I mean, this is similar to, Ferguson, like we just talked about, only he's considered week to week. Ferguson's they're like, he might play. Who knows? But Rome Odunze, the future of that wide receiver core there in Chicago, I'm sure they're going to be very careful, especially having Keenan Allen and DJ Moore there. With their embarrassment of riches, I don't see them pushing for Odunze to come back, which that offense did not look that great anyway. So you're probably going to sit him anyway. But either way, wouldn't be playing him. I would be shocked if he played. Jordan Addison, ankle injury, got in limited practice Monday, should be fine. They're probably just managing his reps. He was already dinged up with that ankle before he played. He was okay, but the coach is hopeful he'll be available. I'd watch it, but I bet Jordan Addison plays. And then last but not least, Marquise Brown, that SC joint, he was ruled out, before. It says that he's getting close to getting back on the field. That does not mean he's going to come back to game action just because he gets back on the field. It could be one more week. We'll just see how his practice schedule. If he gets in a couple full practices this week, yeah, I bet he goes. And that could probably hurt Rashee Rice's stock a little bit. But either way, Marquise Brown, SC joint, keep an eye on it. He's getting close to coming back. I bet it's one more week, but who knows? But if he does, when he does come back, I think he's going to have flex value. All right, that's going to round out our injuries and updates to that such. Waiver Wire week 16. 16. Craziness. My last outline. Week 2 coming at y'all. So quarterbacks, same guy I had on there that I told you to pick up before this weekend, and he ended up being QB1 in 6-point fantasy in 6-point touchdown leagues, and then I think he was QB2 in 4-point per touchdown leagues. And that's what I'm going to preface with this. Clay actually reached out to me when I sent him this outline and all my players. He was like, "Man, your points must be based off a 6-point per touchdown league and not a 4, because that would skew some of these quarterbacks a little bit." And that's very much so. So if you're in a 4-point per touchdown league, you might want to edge toward a more rushing heavy quarterback or a high volume quarterback. But most of these guys, if they're not rushing, they're high volume, which is on their list. But if you're in a 6-point per touchdown league, you definitely want to think about a couple of these guys, because I think they're going to throw the ball a fair amount more than they're going to run it. But number one for me has got to be Baker, owned in 34.1% leagues. This week he's going to be at Detroit, who's got a decent defense, but it's in a dome. And with that offense, he looks extremely comfortable. Great playmakers around him. He was QB1 in 6-point touchdown leagues, 4-point touchdown leagues, QB2. And honestly, going back like 7-8 weeks at the end of last season, I think he's been like a top 5 or 6 quarterback in averages. Like, I mean, it's unreal, and he's still out there. Go pick up Baker Mayfield if he's available. Number 2's got to be probably Geno Smith. Come out QB 11. This week he's going to be at New England. I mean, honestly, he's got everything he needs to be a top 10 quarterback. He's got a offensive-minded head coach now. He's got a ton of playmakers around him. Kind of a tough matchup this week in New England as they look very good under Gerard Mayo in their first game, and they looked like they could be defensive-minded again. But he had 4 rushes for 30 yards and a touchdown. And that little boost of rushing for Geno Smith in that offense with his passing ability and the wide receivers he has, man, that screams top 10 quarterback. And I mean, it's only been a couple years, and he was like QB 2 or 3 on the year at the end of the year. So keep an eye on Geno Smith if you need one for streaming. You could probably find worse matchups, but I really think he's got rest of the season value. And then last but not least, Derek Carr going up against Dallas. Kind of a tough matchup, but man, did he looked good. 30.3 fantasy points and 6 point for touchdown leagues. This is one where if you're in a 4 point per touchdown league, you might want to think about Justin Fields for Pittsburgh, who should start again, who looked pretty good, but ran the ball like 11 times for like 50, 60 yards. If Fields is out there in a 4 point per touchdown league, highly recommend picking him up, especially while he's starting. But 6 point per touchdown leagues, I love Derek Carr, only 4.5% owned. At Dallas, tougher matchup, but man, that offense under Clint Kubiak, not Gary. By the way, I was telling somebody the other day, they were talking about this Kubiak offense, and all I could think about was Gary Kubiak back in the day, how he friggin' like just another old school run the ball, and his offense faded. And I was thinking, and this is Clint Kubiak, his son. And anyway, that was my mistake on all that. And I was like, man, but dude, that Saints offense looked a lot better. Now I will say, I'm not 100% sure if it wasn't the Saints offense looking better or if it was just Carolina being that bad, because they looked really terrible. Like, man, you're not talking about a team that just looked unprepared, and it was rough, but good for the Saints. So it was good to see them get out there, get a win. The Superdome was rocking, man. I mean, a lot of delay. There was a couple delay game plays where they couldn't even hear the snap count. You just like to see that from a New Orleans fan standpoint. So Derek Carr, I mean, I'm not jumping all in on him yet, but it looked better. He looked like the Derek Carr that I really honestly thought we were getting 2 years ago. But he is definitely worth picking up and stashing just to see what happens. If you're in a bind, you could stream him because I don't like the matchup at Dallas, but I do like that it's in a dome, and I do like that most of his playmakers are healthy, and I like Derek Carr. So that's all my quarterbacks. And like I said, Justin Fields in a 4 point per touchdown league, definitely throw him in there as well. Running backs that stole the show this week, man, there was a couple of them, because wide receivers definitely did not do that. But Jordan Mason for San Francisco, like we talked about, CMC debacle, 37.4% owned. He's going to be at Minnesota this week. There's a chance CMC doesn't play again this week. And Jordan Mason was like, give me 1 second, I'll tell you, because I did not put it in my notes for some reason. Hang on, I'm going to tell y'all. Anyway, Jordan Mason, he was a feature back without CMC, and he's a true handcuff in an RB1. I mean, he is RB1 upside in an offense if CMC misses, and he probably has value without him, even though we haven't seen that yet. Just looked really good last week. Let's see. I'm going to tell y'all where he landed. So with my scoring in this league, this is ESPN. It's a pretty traditional scoring league without a lot of crazy bonuses. RB4 last week, coming in RB4 with 23.3 points, or 23.3 points. I mean, just a stud. He is number one pickup for sure, especially CMC doesn't play, and even if he does, putting him on your bench, because when CMC doesn't, he is a RB1. Number 2 for me, Jaleel McLaughlin for Denver, 44.2% owned, going up against Pittsburgh this week. He only had 5.8 points. Don't get me wrong, but 5 catches on 5 targets and 10 rushes for a guy that we thought was going to be the second fiddle in this Denver offense. It definitely looked like a 1A, 1B situation with Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin. And if McLaughlin's getting the passing down work, I want that in this Denver Sean Payton-led offense. And not only that, Knicks look to check the ball down a lot, and Jaleel McLaughlin could be a PPR king over the coming weeks. One of those just steady 8 to 10 point players. I mean, honestly, with 5 catches, I was like, how does he only have 5 points? But, I mean, his rushes were almost obsolete. His catches were not, that can't be right. 5.8 points. Y'all give me a second here. I probably mess this up on my head. All right. Yep, 5.8 points. So he had 10 rushes for 27 yards, God bless him, and then 5 catches for 1 yard. I was like, man. But anyway, so yeah, that's what you got. But still, you got to be encouraged by that volume in this offense. So Jaleel McLaughlin's got to be number 2 for me. Number 3, Tank Bigsby, coming out, really looking super efficient, averaging 6 yards a carry, and just looked like he's a true handcuff to ETN there in Jacksonville. But not only that, he has a role established without being ETN's handcuff. I mean, 12 rushes for 73 yards, no catches, but 7 points. You got to like that volume. And if he gets some goal line work, I mean, he could have, flex value, especially in bye weeks. But not only that, he is definitely the handcuff to ETN. Like if something were to happen to ETN, he is the guy you want for sure. So I like Tank Bigsby and his value to stash there and put on your bench. And then Justice Hill got a lot more work than everybody anticipated there behind Derrick Henry and got all the passing down work just about. I mean, looked pretty solid in his matchup against Kansas City, which was shocking, but 6 catches on 8 targets for 52 yards, only 1 rush. So he's, pretty much strictly the passing down work. But he outsnapped Derrick Henry 43-37. Now, Baltimore was trailing Kansas City for most of that game. So they were playing in catch-up mode, hence Hill was in there. And I don't know how much that happens for Baltimore. I mean, this week they got Las Vegas coming up, so I would not hold out high hopes. But if he continues to have these type of games as that pass catch and roll, if they continue to trail, then there's a strong chance that Justice Hill could have really good flex value for the rest of the season. So I like him. And then last but not least, I didn't even put him on my outline, but with the news of Kenneth Walker having that abdomen injury, I'd keep an eye on that, but Zach Charbonnet would definitely be on this list if it's truly a serious injury. So he's somebody to consider. And then that's going to round out our running backs. We're going to jump right on into wide receivers. Number 1, it's hard to not say Brandon Cooks, somebody who I thought was almost irrelevant. And he kind of come in 14.5 fantasy points, 7 targets, 4 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Something you're like, man, that doesn't really scream volume. But if Dallas, if they lose Ferguson with the volume that they have, I mean, you got to think that there's a solid chance that Cooks is going to see an increase in volume, but he looked pretty good. He looked in sync. He's got chemistry with Dak. So I think he's a solid wide receiver too in this offense. It's not going to be like Jalen Tolbert like we were thinking. So only under 29.7% leagues. Probably number 1 for me in that type of volume offense. Number 2 is going to be Al Lazard. Owned at 0.9%. I mean, dude, Aaron Rodgers' best buddy, and we've seen it. Now, he did not out-target Garrett Wilson, which is what probably scared a lot of people, but he had 9 targets, 6 catches, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. Man, did Rodgers look for him in the red zone, which is definitely something you want from Aaron Rodgers. 26.9 fantasy points, out 100. He played 100% of the snaps, guys. And when you're one of Rodgers' favorite targets and you play 100% of the snaps for an offense, it really don't matter. And this week they're going to be at Tennessee. Now, he even caught a touchdown pass from Tyrod Taylor. So if something happens to Rodgers, Taylor and Lazard look like they got chemistry. Mike Williams was limited. That could be something that could affect Lazard later on. But as of right now, man, he looks like the guy to own there. for the Jets. Next guy is somebody I accidentally smooth left off the list. This was an error on me. He won't be on the graphic, but it's a little nugget. This is why you listen to the pod, because if I forget something, then I'm going to throw it in here last minute. Rashid Shaheed for New Orleans. I did not realize he was only 52% owned in leagues. Looked really good, really fast in this offense. They ran the ball a lot more than I think they will this week against Dallas. He's also going to get the number 2 corner in Dallas, not the number 1. Not saying because Dallas' secondary is pretty strong, not saying that's a big upgrade, but I like Rashid Shaheed a lot going forward with the way this offense looked. He is somebody I would heavily consider picking up if he's out there. Which being in Louisiana, there's no telling if he's out there or not. But only 5 targets, but man, 3 catches for 73 yards and then and a touchdown. It just looked really explosive, and Derek Carr was chunking the ball to him. So you got to love to see that. Number 3, which technically number 4, but number 3 for me on my list, Red Dortch for Arizona, owned in 1.6% of fantasy leagues. Honestly, man, Marvin Harrison was like completely obsolete, which is sad because of his value that a lot of people placed. But Greg Dortch, we've seen it before with Kyler Murray. He was really comfortable going to him. 8 targets, 6 catches for 47 yards. Not a lot of yards there, 11 points, but man, he only played 61% of the snaps, and that was the volume he got. If they're in a really heavy points chasing game, which they might be going up against the Rams this week, man, Murray looked comfortable going to him, and Greg Dortch is probably the 3rd pass option on this team. You're going to have Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, then it's going to be Greg Dortch. It's not going to be Michael Wilson, not going to be James Conner. It's going to be Greg Dortch, and he looked good. I mean, I think he's got flex value right now, and if he starts getting more involved in running and gadget plays like we've seen in the past, you could be talking about a low-end wide receiver too, possibly, if they trail a lot, which we expect in games. The next guy for me, I'm going to swap these up. I had Devon Vele there, but I'm going to swap it up. I'm going to put Tyler Johnson as my next guy, number 4. Man, look, Puka Nacua going down was tough. Everybody's on the Demarcus Robinson train because he played more snaps, but Tyler Johnson looked electric when he got that ball. I don't think Sean McVay or Matthew Stafford are going to ignore that. He's only owned in 0.1% of fantasy leagues. This week they're at Arizona, one of the worst secondaries in the league, right there with Washington's. He had 7 he played 65% of the snaps, but he had 7 targets, 5 catches for 79 yards, including 1 big play. So I think he looked explosive. He's only 26 years old. He's never really got a fair shake at solid playing time. He was in Tampa Bay forever behind Godwin and Evans. This is his chance to be a wide receiver 2 possibly in an offense. It still might be Demarcus Robinson, but I think Tyler Johnson benefits more from Puka being out and is more productive than Demarcus Robinson. Especially while Puka's out. Now, when Puka comes back, he could be obsolete again, but I think it's going to be Tyler Johnson, and it's a good matchup this week at Arizona. So I like Tyler Johnson a lot. Then next going to be Devon Vele for Denver, owned in 0.1% fantasy leagues. A rookie, he's like huge. I think he is like 6'4", 6'5". Let me pull this up, and then I'll go over that with y'all. Yeah, I think he's 6'4", 6'5", something like that. A really big wide receiver. Let's see. There we go. 6'5", 210, rookie for Denver, man. And, there's a lot of buzz about him coming in out of training camp of this guy, talking about he was going to have a decent role. And, everybody wasn't really buying in on that. It was a lot of hype. But, well, you know what? He looked to be a safety valve for Bo Nix. And he ended up with a stat line of 8 for 39 yards with 8 catches. That's crazy. But 8 targets and 8 catches. I mean, that tells me right there he's probably got some hands on him, because in an NFL game and you get 8 targeted 8 times and you catch all 8 of them, I mean, that's pretty solid. And being 6'6", 210, there's a lot of potential there in a Sean Payton offense, especially in the red zone as well. But if they're checking the ball down and they're looking for this guy in the flats, it means that he's also possibly a playmaker. They're trying to get him the ball any way they can and let him make a play. So Devon Vele for Denver, I keep an eye on him. He could be the new wide receiver 1. Now, Cortland Sutton had more targets and I think more yards, but Von Vele, I mean, and he only, all right, so another one, let me preface this. He only played 49% of the snaps. So 8 targets, 8 catches, 39 yards with only 49% of the snaps. And that's probably because he's still getting familiar with the offense with him being a rookie. Man, that's got some potential there. And then next for me is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson for the New York Giants. I mean, owned in 6.9% leagues, terrible offense, but he's going to have value. He had 12 targets, 6 catches for 44 yards. He out-targeted Malik Neighbors. Now, do I think he's going to be better than Malik Neighbors' offense? No, not the stock that they put in Wan'Dale Robinson on this team. Is still going to be the one. I mean, it's not the stock that they put in Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is going to be the focal point, but Wan'Dale Robinson, I believe, is going to benefit heavily from all the coverage and all the attention that Malik Neighbors is going to garner. And I think Wan'Dale Robinson could easily be a flex play right now. Maybe if they had some better quarterback play, could be a solid like low end wide receiver too. But they're playing at Washington this week, which has a terrible secondary. And he had 11.8 fantasy points, like I said before, 12 targets, 6 catches, 44 yards. He had a carry for 14 yards. So they're not using him just in the passing game. And with all the attention that Neighbors getting, like I said, it's just going to create more opportunity for Robinson. He's only played in 68% of the snaps with that volume. So I think that just tells me when he's in there, they're trying to give him the ball. If he had better quarterback play, he'd be even way higher on this list. So if they end up trading for a quarterback or something, which could be a possibility, I think his volume or value goes up. Or maybe Daniel Jones figures out whatever he has going wrong and gets back to being a decent quarterback. Then he could be really, really valuable in this offense. But that's Wan'Dale Robinson for the Giants. And then last but not least is a guy that did not play, that may not play in week 2, but I think is going to be a real value when he comes back after seeing this offense is Josh Downs for Indianapolis Colts. He's only owned in 0.1% leagues. Right now, if you pick him up, he's probably not getting put on he's not getting wavered. So he's probably just out there for agency. Pick him up, put him in your IR spot. If you have an opening, they're playing at Green Bay. But honestly, what really gives me pause or like belief that Josh Downs could be the man there is there was no emergence of a wide receiver one at Indianapolis. And I mean, I would not like they didn't throw a ton in this game. There was only 19 passes, but there was a ton of buzz in camp about the connection between Anthony Richardson and Josh Downs coming in. And if that is the case, that could explain to us why he just doesn't have that connection with everybody else. And the ball was just really honestly spread around. I think Pittman had like 5 targets. Alec Pierce had 3 targets. Like a couple tight ends had a couple targets. A couple of the running backs had a couple targets. Like, I mean, it was really spread around, and no wide receiver one really stepped up in this offense. I think Josh Downs could be that guy when he comes back. I think he could be that emergency if they have that true connection that we've been hearing about. So he's definitely somebody you might want to pick up and stash. And if he plays this week, you might not play him just to see what happens. But if he booms this week, you're going to be fighting to get him next week. And if he doesn't play this week, highly recommend picking him up next week because I think there's a solid chance he comes back in week 3. All right, that's all my wide receivers. Rolling right on into tight end. Still kind of a barren wasteland of despair. That's what it was last year, and it's still kind of like that. And it was a rough fantasy week for tight ends. I mean, outside of Isaiah Likely, there was not many tight ends that did very well this week. And Isaiah Likely's coming in at the number 1 waiver ad for tight end. And honestly, probably the 2 or 3 top waiver ad this week. But I do want to preface that I do not think he is going to have this kind of volume or this kind of output weekly. Like, I mean, he's good, guys, but it's still Mark Andrews there. Still Zay Flowers there. They were in a negative game script where they were passing a lot. I think this had a lot to do with Mark Andrews being in that car accident and being banged up, just not getting the reps in right there because he pretty much didn't practice hardly at all until like the week of the game for like the last 2 weeks or so. So I think he's going to get more acclimated, get back into the game shape, get back in the chemistry with him and Lamar have is, that's just not going away. But Likely, 10.5% fantasy leagues. Good matchup this week though against Vegas. But if they're up against Vegas, I don't think they throw the ball as much. So I don't think they have that much passing volume like they did last week. But Likely, 12 catches, 12 targets, 9 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown. on just 66% of the snaps. So when he was in there, they were looking to use him. He was in there on all the passing plays for sure. Could end up being maybe the second or third option. I really think more likely the third option behind Andrews and Flowers, but could be the second ahead of Flowers. I still think Andrews is the guy. If it wasn't for Andrews being there, I mean, likely be the number one ad, easy, and probably a top 10, maybe top 5 tight end in the league. But I just think I think it has a lot more to do with Andrews being rusty. But he is too talented, and it's too tough a position in free agency to ignore. I think he's definitely somebody you need to pick up if he's out there, and you need tight end help for sure. Number 2 at tight end for me is going to be Colby Parkinson for the Rams. Honestly, he kind of did pretty good even without that. 5 targets, 4 catches for 47 yards with 8.7 fantasy points. I mean, dude, that's a Tyler Higbee line if I ever seen it. And honest, with as rough as tight end is, if you get 8-10 points out of your tight end every week, you're pretty happy. And I'll take that. And he's only owned in 1.6% of fantasy leagues. He's going at Arizona this week. Pretty solid matchup. But with Puka Nacua going down, I think there's a solid chance that this boosts Colby Parkinson's value and volume a little bit in this offense. And, I mean, they actually had a couple plays that were drawn up just for Colby Parkinson to get the ball and make a play. And you've seen Matthew Stafford looking for him a couple times whenever he was in a bind. So Stafford's trusting him. Sean McVay knows how to use him. And he played 88% of the snaps. So I think Colby Parsons the guy there for the Rams. And with them being short on pass catchers a little bit, I think he could be somebody that could really benefit you at tight end going forward. And then last but certainly not least, Juwan Johnson for New Orleans, which is a guy that, a lot of hype coming in before, ended up having foot surgery in the offseason not too long before the season started. So he was pretty much nursing and not practicing a lot coming in. But coming into this game, like, they didn't even know if he was going to play. Like, they thought he might end up sitting out, but he did. And then he got 10.1 fantasy points with 3 targets, 2 catches for 26 yards and a touchdown on only 35% of the snaps. Like, dude, like 35% of the snaps, you get 3 targets, 2 catches for 26 yards and touchdown, and you were injured, barely playing, might not even play coming in. Man, especially the way this offense looked, I think Juwan Johnson's got a very, very good outlook for the rest of the season. Foster Moreau did good instead, but then got a concussion. So I think they're going to lean heavier on Juwan Johnson, especially since he got out there, looked pretty good. I think he still might be limited a little bit, but man, you get 60%, you double that production. I mean, you're talking 6 targets, 4 catches for 50 yards, maybe a touchdown, maybe not. Either way, that's solid volume at the tight end position. But with his opportunity in the red zone, you can't ignore that. And I temper my expectations about this offense just in case, like I prefaced earlier, if it was Carolina really being that bad. But I think Juwan Johnson's a key pass catcher in this offense when he's healthy. And I think he was not healthy in this game and was still productive. So I think he's somebody to look at and possibly pick up, and might be somebody you play going into this week, especially if Foster Moreau's out in concussion protocol, because he is in concussion protocol. Then I think there's a solid chance that Juwan Johnson gets more opportunity against Dallas. And this could be a game where New Orleans is trailing in points and throwing the ball more, and that definitely benefits Juwan Johnson. So, but he's my last tight end, and then that's going to pretty much wrap up our position players. And then I'm going to give you a couple streaming defenses and a couple kickers, and then we're going to get out of here. But number one streaming defense for me this week's got to be the Chargers going up against Carolina Panthers. I mean, honestly, until Carolina shows me something, it's going to be a pick on the Panther streaming defense every week. But this week, Chargers at the Panthers, they look terrible. The Chargers actually looked pretty good in their matchup. Let me see who they played real quick for y'all. So the Chargers went up against Vegas, so probably honestly very similar matchup here. Had 1 interception, 2 fumbles, 4 sacks, only allowed 10 points, 15 points in this league for a defense. I mean, there's no reason to think that's probably what you're going to get out of the Chargers again this week. So love the Chargers this week. Other defense, if they're if they're available out there, I like Houston at Chicago at home against Chicago. Caleb Williams did not look good. The Chicago offense in general did not look good, and I think Houston's defense is going to overpower Chicago's defense. I mean, Houston's offense is going to overpower Chicago's defense. So I don't think that they're going to be near Chicago's defense is going to be near as successful. And Houston's at home. They're a lot better than Tennessee, I think, and Chicago struggle with Tennessee's defense. I think Houston routs them very easily. I think it's going to be really embarrassing for Chicago in general. But I like Houston's defense a lot this week. The last two of them. Sorry, guys. We're going to make it through this pod, though. Y'all hang in there with me. So, Chargers and Houston this week at defense. And then kickers. Man, you got to throw your guy Blake Grupe out there for New Orleans. Hopefully he didn't get checked by security again, trying to sneak into the game. And but going at Dallas in the Dome, probably a high-scoring game. Definitely like the chances of a lot of field goal attempts for Grupe. He looked great this past week for New Orleans. I mean, hang on, and I'll tell you. Let's see. He put up a smooth 22 points, all right? Had several long-distance field goals. Really like Grupe this week at Dallas, and honestly, probably for the rest of the year because he's playing in that Dome. But then also I like Chase McLaughlin this week. Another guy that had a great week and a great offense, 15 points for him in the opening weekend. This week he's at Detroit, which is another Dome, another probably high-scoring game. So I like Grupe and Chase McLaughlin, both of them owned in less than 10% of leagues. So they're out there, go and get them. So, but that's going to round out our waiver wire episode for week 2 coming up, and I hope some of these help y'all. We really appreciate everybody listening. Go out, like, subscribe, give us some comments on your your platform of choice, whether it be Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, whatever it is. Just go out there, follow us, like, subscribe, give us some comments. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Hey, give us a good rating. If there's ratings out there, give us a good rating on that. We really appreciate that. But the week, don't overthink week 1, guys. Week 1 was pretty crazy. Don't abandon your studs. Not yet. Okay. At least give it 2 weeks with some of these big time players that you invested a lot of draft capital in. Don't abandon them yet. Now there's some guys on your bench that really didn't do nothing. Yeah, it might be okay to jump ship on them, especially for some of these higher valuable guys like Jordan Mason, Isaiah Likely. But there's going to be, it's early. There's still 1 or 2 more weeks where there's probably going to be somebody emerge that you're going to wish you might would have saved some of your draft capital or some of your waiver wire position for. So don't go out and blow your wad yet. And don't go out and drop a bunch of these guys that had bad week 1s because we've seen it before where they bounce back and they stay bounced back for the rest of the year. So just kind of think about that. Temper your expectations on how week 1 was versus the rest of the year. So just kind of keep that in mind. But thank you all, everybody. Thank you to our sponsors. Keep our prayer requests in your prayers, and y'all keep chasing that trophy.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you and me. I feel